Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is Friday Ramblings, and we are here for our final entry in our Disney Afternoon Retrospective series. We're going out with my personal favorite from the classic Disney Afternoon era, and that is Darkwing Duck. Now, what is Darkwing Duck, you may ask? Well, Darkwing Duck is, on the surface, a fun action-adventure, superhero-type cartoon. But there is so much more to it because you see, you can watch the show as that or watch it on a deeper level by recognizing that the show is one huge ongoing satire. The show works as a genre parody. Previous Disney Afternoon shows would contain elements of parody in certain episodes, but would otherwise be straight-faced adventure concepts in the tradition of Carl Barks' work in the Disney comics of yesteryear, which we had previously discussed, highly influencing many plots of DuckTales, as well as the base character concepts. However, every episode of Darkwing Duck is laden with references to superhero, pulp adventures, or super spy fiction. Darkwing Duck himself is a satirical character, as his costume, gas gun, and flashy introductions are all reminiscent of pulp and golden age superheroes, especially Sandman, Doc Savage, and Batman, along with a dash of Green Hornet, Lone Ranger, and Zorro. The fictional city of St. Canard is highly influenced by Gotham City itself, so it can serve, after you've watched the initial batch of episodes and enjoy this script for what it is, it can be watched as a count the references satire. The show aired for 91 episodes spread over 3 seasons and was created by Tad Stone. Originally, it was thought by some fans to be a spin-off of the 1987 DuckTales series due to supporting character from the get-go of Launchpad McQuack, the fact that both series featured a city full of anthropomorphized ducks. However, despite the series also starring Gizmo Duck as a recurring ally, creator Tad Stones has said that he always wrote the show with the belief that it and DuckTales existed in 2 separate universes, implying that, although they share the characters of Launchpad and Gizmo Duck, these are alternate reality counterparts. Despite this, a Scrooge McDuck of some sort is mentioned in Darkwing Duck episode Tiff of the Titans, and the various comic book adaptations of both DuckTales and Darkwing Duck did feature crossovers and borrowing of villains. But as far as the show itself goes, you do not need to know anything about DuckTales to watch Darkwing Duck. Now, besides being much more satirical in nature than previous shows, it did emphasize the action side more than the globe-trotting adventure side, with Darkwing Duck spending most of his time in St. Canard, as well as routinely engaging in slapstick-style battles with those supervillains and street criminals. This is a difference from DuckTales, where any fight scenes shown were extremely brief and usually at the very tail finale, whereas Darkwing Duck was full of it. So, what's the basic plot? Well, let's get to it. Darkwing Duck tells the adventures of the titular superhero, aided by his sidekick and pilot Launchpad McQuack, as well as his adopted daughter, Gosselin. Darkwing Duck has the secret identity of Drake Mallard, a reference to Ken Allard, the alter ego of the Shadow, and in his civilian life often has to put up with the dim-witted next-door neighbors, the Muddlefoot family. Darkwing often struggles to balance his egotistical craving for fame and attention against his desire to be a good father to Gosalyn and be genuinely heroic to St. Canard. This means that many episodes often have Darkwing being conflicted over, hey, should I say the name now or wait till the reporters show up? But no matter what, at the end of the day, his best nature wins out, and Darkwing proves he is a great hero and a loving father by the time the end credits roll. A little behind the scenes notes here, folks. Darkwing Duck was developed as a last-minute replacement for a proposed reboot of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show when Disney management realized that they did not actually own the rights to the characters, merely holding home video rights to the series. Rocky and Bullwinkle is a huge kettle of fish that will definitely have to get its own episode some other time. Still, Darkwing Duck entered production roughly 1 year after DuckTales ended, and was inspired by two specific episodes of DuckTales, Double O Duck, starring Launchpad as a secret agent, and The Masked Mallard, in which Scrooge McDuck becomes a masked vigilante superhero wearing a purple uniform and cape. The name The Masked Mallard became an epithet often used in the new show to refer to Darkwing himself. So Tad Stones, being directed to come up with a series around the premise of Double O Duck, wrote it originally intending for Launchpad to take the starring role. However, because the Broccoli family, who produced the James Bond films, had the rights to the Double O title for film and television, they could not name the show Double O Duck. As well as they felt, having already had that legal spat, aiming at something else but still making a very clear James Bond parody would just be pushing the limits of fair use parody rights, and nobody wants to upset the Broccoli family and James Bond people. So, with the new name of Darkwing Duck, Stones designed a new character for the lead, Drake Mallard, sticking with the purple uniform reference that we had mentioned just a few moments ago. Putting Launchpad McQuack as the sidekick. Many elements of the show, such as Darkwing's habit of coining new catchphrases every time he announced himself, would be invented during productions, creating an in-joke in the episode of Duck by Any Other Name, which had Drake Mallard suggest Double O Duck as a new secret identity, and Launchpad's response being that it seemed silly. This means that the show quickly became one of the most original concept shows of the early Disney afternoon era. As many of the previous entries we discussed, Tailspin, Goof Troop, you could still follow the trail from the original pre-existing Disney license inspiration, whereas Darkwing Duck quickly evolved into a show in and of its own right, especially with Tad Stones using Launchpad as his own little character and not worried about DuckTales continuity. March 31st, 1991 had a sneak preview of Darkwing Duck before it came into regular run in April. The two-part series premiered Darkly Dawns the Duck, originally aired as an hour-length TV special, serving as the show's pilot. Seasons 1 and 2 were aired back-to-back in the autumn of 1991. Season 1 airing in syndication as part of the Disney Afternoon block of shows. Seasons 2 and 3 airing on Saturday mornings on ABC. before eventually migrating to the Disney afternoon as reruns. Final episode aired on December 12th, 1992. However, all episodes remained in syndicated reruns until 1995, later returning the lineup for 96 to 97. With the exception of the episode Hot Spells, which, due to it having some religious undertones, after its initial airing was considered to be a bit sensitive to some audiences and was not featured in any of the rerun blocks. Hey, it happens to a lot of series, no harm, no foul. Although the series did see several compilation VHS releases, and the first 55% of the episodes released on 2 DVD sets, an entire run of the series has never seen home media release, although it does air on the Disney Plus streaming service currently. And besides airing in the Disney Afternoon block, reruns of it later in 21st Century would air on Toon Disney and Disney XD. Good times. So let's break down real quick some of the other characters. We have the aforementioned Drake Mallard / Darkwing Duck. We have sidekick Launchpad McQuack, adopted daughter Gosalyn Mallard, who is a 9-year-old unstoppable bundle of energy and spunk. She was in the series premiere being raised by her grandfather, Professor Waddlemeyer, famous scientist who was murdered by gangster Taurus Bulba and his underlings. Darkwing, in stopping Taurus Bulba, decides to adopt Gosalyn and create a full civilian life for himself as her foster father. Good times. She herself has been an occasional crime fighter, going by codenames such as the Crimson Quackette, the Quiverwing Quack, and Yucky Duck. More often than not, though, she simply shows up to help Darkwing out as Gosalyn. This means that were people a little more intelligent, they could probably figure out Darkwing's secret identity by noticing Drake Mallard's daughter seems to hang out with Darkwing Duck a lot, and Drake Mallard's not around. But the cartoon never got that serious, being satirical by nature. You have neighbors the Muddlefoots, Herb, Pinky, older brother Tank, the prerequisite bully, and Honker, the nerdy best friend of Gosalyn. You also have in recurring roles the Justice Ducks, a team of superheroes formed in the 2-part episode Just Us Justice Ducks to help Darkwing fend off the villainous Fearsome Five. This would be the aforementioned Gizmo Duck, Morgana Macabre, a sorceress duck who would go on to serve as Darkwing's girlfriend, often appearing by herself in episodes. Neptunia, an anthropomorphic fish and self-appointed protector of the sea. And Stegmutt, a former janitor who was transformed into a humanoid Stegosaurus. Good times. Gotta have dinosaurs in your show somewhere. Darkwing would also occasionally work for Shush, an intelligence agency that is a parody of Marvel Comics' S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as real-world organizations like the FBI and CIA. including one of many female characters named some variant of cerebellum, as in the part of the brain, cerebellum. It's a super smart character. Ha, 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 ha. Moving on. Greatest agent in the history of Shush is Derek Blunt. Closest thing the series ever got to any kind of James Bond parody after that initial 00 Duck idea was deemed unusable. Among other Shush members is leader J. Gander Hooter, play on J. Edgar Hoover, Femme Peel, a statuesque foxy lady, as in literal fox, and the Darkwing Squad, a group of 4 Shush agents who idolize Darkwing to the point of basically cosplaying him. On the villain side, we do have Fearsome Five, operating both as teams and, for the first chunk of the show, especially as individuals, Negaduck, Darkwing Duck's evil doppelganger and arch nemesis, hailing from the nightmarish parallel reality called the Negaverse. Negaduck's colors are yellow and black, and he is a jerk through and through. Dr. Bushroot, a scientist who gains plant-based powers, as well as his sidekicks Spike and Posey. The Liquidator, a mutant dog-like creature who, as the name would suggest, has water-based powers, serves as a pretty blatant parody of Spider-Man villain Hydro Man. Megavolt, an insane rat with the ability to control electricity, who tends to be not only a solo act, but outside of the Fearsome Five, regularly partnering up with the final member, Quackerjack, a toy maker who went insane after the advent of video games put him out of business. Quackerjack himself has a banana-headed doll called Mr. Banana Brain that he carries along with him, because crazy. Mr. Banana Brain itself would be possessed by the demon Paddywhack in a single episode, The Haunting of Mr. Banana Brain. Backing up the Fearsome Five, when you're just plain tired of beating them up, you have Shush's evil equivalent Fowl, referencing to the infamous Spectre from the James Bond novels. Fowl was originally introduced in the 87 DuckTales episode 00 Duck. You have, among their members is Steelbeak, a rooster who acts like a 1920s gangster, Ammonia Pine, Ample Grime, Major Synapse, and various Eggmen, which are the unnamed Mook soldiers. Other villains include the Taurus Bulba, who was assumed dead after the series premiere, what was later rebuilt as a cyborg, and would occasionally come back to harass Darkwing Duck, seeking revenge. Bulba has his own gang of sidekicks and mooks. There's also Major Trench Rot, the King, an Elvis impersonator and gang leader, Newt Glimmer, Jambalaya Jake, Jock Newbody, Professor Moriarty, a mushmouth mole, whose name's a reference to Sherlock Holmes' nemesis, James Moriarty, the aforementioned Dr. Fossil, who created Stegmutt of the Justice Ducks, and many, many others who would show up once in one-shot episodes. There's, of course, various civilians around town, but I could go here all day, and we do have a little bit of wrap-up. As was before, Darkwing Duck would gain its own comic book series that would run initially under Boom Studios' banner before Boom Studios lost the Disney licenses. This would see the only blatant crossing over with DuckTales, which means in the comic book version, if it's not literally the same universe as Darkwing Duck, there is at least highly similar equivalents in Darkwing's parallel reality. Read into that how you will. Or the comic books is its own separate reality from the TV series, and the DuckTales comic is separate reality from its own series, and the two comics happen to be in the same reality. There's a few different ways you can no-prize it. Us old school comic book fans, we can rationalize anything in our head. Besides that, though, there were also the requisite toys and video games. The NES game is the most iconic and well-loved, being made by Capcom and borrowing a lot of platforming, run-and-gun style gameplay from Mega Man. I'm not even kidding. Go play a couple of the Mega Man NES games. Go pop in Darkwing Duck. There are certain times, in fact, most of the game, Darkwing Duck will feel like a reskin of Mega Man. But the thing is, that's not a bad thing. Mega Man was one of the best game franchises on the NES. And since it's the same company, you can understand why they would use similar game engines and mechanics. Game is definitely worth checking out. It is part of the current Disney Afternoon collection that can be purchased on wonderful platforms such as Steam. So give it a good run through. There was also a TurboGrafx 16 game that was much less well received. So why do I love Darkwing Duck so much? Why did I make this the big finale? Simple. The satirical nature of it. The fact that at its core it's a superhero cartoon. Everything was worked so well. Tad Stones led a brilliant team of writers and animators who got together to make sure that the series was full of in-jokes and pop culture references, but even if you didn't catch any of them, would stand on its own as an action-packed cartoon, creating a superhero that deserves respect in his own right. As I said before, Darkwing may occasionally let the idea of being the most famous man in St. Canard go to his head, but at the end of the day, his heroism and selflessness shines through. His love for Goslin and friendship with Launchpad are genuine and serve as his moral compasses in many episodes. So if you got a Disney Plus subscription, give the show a run through. At least the first half of the first season. That's a good 12 to 14 episodes. It's, depending on how they divide things up. But, as I said, give it a good dozen episodes. See how it strikes you. I think you'll find that the show has a lot of heart and a lot of story underneath the gags and the parodies. The show will always have a warm place in my heart, as for a few years there, it was my favorite show on TV. And to this day, as I said, thanks to things like that Disney Afternoon Collection, I still like to dig out the Capcom game every so often. I still, in my head, hear that great theme. Daring duck of mystery, champion of right, swoops out of the shadows. Not going to go in anymore, because you get into copyright things. But go check out the theme on YouTube. It's a jam right there. And that is going to wrap up our Disney Afternoon look, at least for now. I don't know. Months down the line, I may dig into stuff like gargoyles, but this is the end of the every month retrospective thing. We're going to take a break from the Disney Afternoon. So, we finished this up, but we're just beginning 2023, so stick around. Like the video, hit your notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and if you've already done all of that already, God bless you. God bless. Still, every week we got more ramblings. We got a full month and a fuller year to go. Join us, and until then, stay healthy and stay happy. Bye-bye, folks.